Sandra, my stunning wife, was particularly playful tonight. As we lounged on the couch post-dinner, she leaped onto my lap, showering me with kisses and hugs, her playful demeanor more pronounced than usual. Known as Donnie among friends, I met Sandra over 5 years ago, and we recently celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. Our paths crossed shortly after my discharge from the Marines. During my military tenure, I delved deeply into weight training and self-defense, culminating in a year-long stint as a drill instructor, molding recruits into resilient soldiers. It was an exhilarating experience, but I harbored ambitions beyond military life. Upon leaving the service, I channeled my savings from 4 years of service into establishing my own gym and health training venture. The business took off swiftly, consuming all my time as I poured myself into its growth and aiding others in their fitness journeys. Standing tall at 6'4" and weighing 255 pounds of muscle, I instilled confidence in my clients, assuring them of my ability to help transform their bodies. Witnessing their evolution from self-doubting individuals to confident, strong beings within 6 months was immensely gratifying. Sandra, the sister of one of my clients, and I hit it off immediately. Despite our contrasting statures, she's standing at 5'4" and weighing 145 pounds lighter than me. We formed an unlikely yet charming couple. At just 110 pounds, Sandra exuded a delicate innocence at 22, while I, at 26, carried the weight of greater life experiences. Although she wasn't keen on training, we relished every moment spent together, filling our free time with shared activities. Our bond grew stronger, leading us to an exclusive relationship and eventual marriage a year later. Sandra proved to be an exceptional lover, attentive and affectionate, fulfilling all my needs with unwavering devotion. Her playful innocence was one of the many qualities I cherished about her. While some might mistake her vivacity for flightiness or dismiss her as a dumb blonde, I found her endearing, though admittedly, she lacked common sense at times. As a health trainer with a chiseled physique and undeniable charm, I constantly faced advances from female clients. It became a perpetual struggle to maintain boundaries, prompting me to install video cameras throughout the gym to safeguard against potential false accusations of sexual assault from rejected suitors. I took these precautions to protect both my business and my reputation, ensuring Sandra could remotely monitor the activities for added peace of mind. Sandra knows the depth of my devotion, and I consistently express my love for her. Financially, we're secure, my business thrives, and Sandra supplements our income with her work as a real estate agent. Last Sunday afternoon, as we lounged in the living room with a bottle of wine, Sandra's playful demeanor surpassed its usual bounds. She giggled incessantly, surprising me by leaping onto my lap, showering me with affectionate kisses reminiscent of a carefree teenager. I couldn't deny the warmth that spread within me. Her attention always made me feel cherished. However, our tranquil moments swiftly shifted when Sandra, her hand gently running through my hair, flashed that heart-melting smile and casually dropped a bombshell. "Sweetheart, Matthew is taking me out to dinner next Friday night. You're okay with that, right?" It took me a moment to process her words. Initially, I brushed it off, basking in her radiant smile. When my silence persisted, she repeated her question with a touch of sweetness. "You don't mind, right?" Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to comprehend. "Sandra, what exactly are you asking me? I'm sorry, but I don't quite follow." "Oh, you silly," she chuckled softly. "Matthew from the office invited me to dinner next Friday, and I may have agreed." As her words sank in, my initial disbelief morphed into understanding, yet disbelief lingered. "Wait, are you asking for my permission to go on a dinner date with Matthew next week?" "It's not really a date, just dinner and maybe a movie," she reassured, her tone light yet tinged with anticipation. I sat there, utterly stunned, my mouth agape in disbelief. Could it be true? Was my devoted wife, the very essence of my love and fidelity, truly asking for my consent to go on a date with another man? "Sandra, that's precisely what a date entails. Are you seriously considering going out with someone else?" I managed to articulate, struggling to comprehend the gravity of her request. "He's just a colleague, Donnie. We have a great rapport at work, and he always brings a smile to my face. It's not like a traditional date, more like drinks after work, but in this instance, dinner and a movie," she explained, her tone seemingly oblivious to the weight of her words. My mind reeled. How could she fail to grasp the enormity of her request? "Sandra, You know I've never entertained the thought of being with another woman. How can you even contemplate going out with another man? Donnie, please don't be jealous. He's nothing like you, and it's just one evening. My feelings for you remain unchanged. He means nothing to me, but I want to do this. I hope you're not upset, she pleaded, her words falling on ears numb with shock. Madness threatened to consume me, but years of military training kept me composed as I swiftly devised a plan. Ah, you've already agreed, I see, I murmured, feigning understanding as I reached for my cell phone. With Sandra still perched on my lap, absent-mindedly playing with my hair, I dialed the number of a persistent suitor who had pursued me for months. Hi Mary, it's Donnie, I spoke into the phone, noting the confusion flickering across my wife's face. I'm doing well, thank you. Say, is that offer still open for Friday night? It is. Fantastic. My wife just mentioned she's interested in an open marriage, and you immediately sprung to mind. It sounds like fun. I'll catch up with you this week to plan it out. Bye. Sandra ceased her hair rubbing and shot me a puzzled glance. Who's Mary? She's one of my clients. We share a good rapport, and she's quite amusing. So we're going out on Friday night, just like you suggested, I explained casually. To my surprise, Sandra's expression shifted to one of immediate anger, and she swiftly vacated my lap, unleashing a torrent of accusations. I couldn't fathom how she failed to perceive that hypocrisy in her request as she railed against me. I can't believe you're going out with some girl, probably some promiscuous woman, I'm sure. I won't tolerate your infidelity, Donnie. That's unacceptable. Struggling to contain my amusement, I responded, but it's perfectly acceptable for you to go out with a coworker. It's different, she retorted adamantly. How so? I pressed. It was just a casual night out for some enjoyment, she defended. Well, that's precisely what I'll be doing as well. Listen, Sandra, I've never desired another woman until you proposed this open marriage a minute ago. Do you honestly think I'd sit idly by while you go on a date? As Sandra gazed at me with a mix of sorrow and frustration, I pressed on, determined to address the situation head-on. You initiated this, and we're going to see it through. You'll go on your date with Matthew, and I'll accompany Mary. Whatever unfolds is beyond our control, but I hope we can maintain our commitment in marriage after Friday night. Until then, I'll be staying in the guest room, and any intimacy between us is off the table. The mere thought of you desiring another man wounds me too deeply to even consider being close to you. At this moment, I feel nothing for you. Sandra's tears mingled with her anger, a sight that would usually prompt me to offer comfort, but not under these circumstances. After allowing her a few moments to collect herself, I continued, my tone resolute. Starting next week, we'll attend counseling to unravel why I seem inadequate to you. If you can help me understand why I fall short, perhaps we can salvage our marriage. But let me be clear, the responsibility lies squarely with you now. The notion of you yearning for another man tempts me to end this marriage immediately, but I'm willing to confront this maturely. Our future hinges on Friday night and our feelings afterward. Just remember, Sandra, whatever unfolds is a consequence of your decision to pursue this date with Matthew. I have no intention of altering my plans, and you'll have to reckon with the aftermath, whatever it may entail. Sandra remained tearful and bewildered, offering no words as she exited the room. It wasn't long before I heard her conversing with her sister on the phone, a scenario I had anticipated. Evidently, her sister's response was less than supportive because an hour later, Sandra returned, assuming her guise of sweetness and innocence. However, I remained vigilant, immune to her attempts at manipulation. Sweetheart, I may have made a mistake about going out with Matthew. I've decided to cancel it. I don't want to be with anyone else, she confessed. That's entirely your decision, Sandra, but you've set something in motion, and I'm resolved to see it through. Whether you choose to go out or stay home, I will not cancel my plans with Mary. You made your desires abundantly clear and intentionally caused me pain. The only path forward for me now is to explore where this leads. Perhaps you're right, and we do need to explore dating others and truly embrace an open marriage. But you must understand there are always consequences to your choices. This was your decision, and remember, you accepted his invitation before consulting me. That hurt, and it's not something I can easily forgive, I asserted firmly. Attempting to clarify once more, Sandra pleaded, Donnie, it wasn't really a date, you have to believe me. It was just a casual after-hours gathering. It's not significant, I'll cancel it. Can't we just go out together on Friday night? Ignoring her entreaties, I grabbed a beer and sought solace on the patio. I spent the night in the guest room and the remainder of the week listening to Sandra's tearful lamentations echoing through the evening. The following day, I received a call from Sandra's sister, Patricia. "Donnie, is it true you're planning to go out with another woman this week? You can't do that to Sandra. She loves you so much." "Patricia, it's evident you're not fully informed about the situation or haven't heard the whole story. Your sister agreed to go on a date with a coworker without consulting me. She returned home and simply announced her plans, showing little regard for my feelings or the integrity of our marriage. I've made the decision to go on a date myself, and afterward, we'll reassess our relationship. I've remained faithful to Sandra since the day I met her. However, I'm uncertain if I can continue in a marriage where my wife desires other men. That's a hurdle I'm struggling to overcome. Do you understand, Patricia?" "Yes, Donnie, I do. I didn't realize she acted so thoughtlessly. Please be patient with her. She may not even realize the hurt she's causing you and may think it's insignificant. Patricia, I am exercising patience. Despite my hurt, I haven't taken any drastic measures, but she must face the consequences of her actions," I responded firmly. After Patricia's intervention, Sandra finally grasped the gravity of her actions and the impact they had on our relationship and my feelings. She apologized earnestly and pleaded with me to reconsider, urging me to cancel our respective dates. However, I was resolute in my determination to restore balance and understanding in our marriage. The realization that one's wife desires another man is a devastating blow I wouldn't wish upon anyone. So, until you've walked in my shoes, please reserve judgment on my decisions. I arranged for Mary to pick me up that night because I wanted her to meet my wife and confirm that it was acceptable for her to accompany a married man. Friday night, despite Sandra's reluctance to go out with her coworker, I insisted she honor her commitment with Matthew. She bristled at my term, boyfriend, attempting to reassure me that he was merely a friend. Sandra dressed elegantly for her date, donning a cute dress that accentuated her natural beauty. I found solace in the fact that she didn't attempt to appear overly alluring, which sparked a glimmer of hope for our relationship. Although apprehensive about meeting Mary, I insisted Sandra greet my date to affirm our transition to an open marriage. Despite her protests against the concept, I brushed them aside, feeling justified in my actions. Sandra's astonishment was palpable when Mary arrived promptly at 6 p.m. Mary stood in stark contrast to Sandra, tall and well-toned. Mary's attire left little to the imagination, her ample curves drawing attention, while I sported a fitted sports jacket that highlighted my muscular physique. Ignoring Sandra's discomfort, I even coerced her into snapping a few photos of Mary and me together, further stoking her ire. We presented a striking couple, as if posing for a fitness magazine cover. It was evident that Sandra seethed with jealousy and resentment, realizing the Pandora's box she had opened. I stifled my amusement as I introduced Mary and Sandra, inwardly smirking at Mary's cheerful greeting. "Sandra, it's lovely to meet you. Donnie mentioned your open marriage, and I'm genuinely happy for you. I've had my eye on this handsome man for the past year, so you can imagine my excitement when he called me on Sunday. I hear you've also found a new boyfriend. Good for you." Mary's words seemed innocent enough, but I could practically see Sandra's rage simmering beneath the surface, unable to formulate a response before the doorbell interrupted us. Sandra's composure faltered as Matthew arrived, and I observed her nervousness as I ushered him inside. I couldn't help but be surprised by Sandra's choice. Matthew stood at about 5'7", nearly the same height as Sandra in her 4-inch heels. He lacked in attractiveness, and I couldn't fathom what Sandra saw in him. Weighing no more than 150 pounds, with receding hair, he posed no physical threat, but his presence still posed a challenge to our relationship. I could tell Matthew was intimidated as I towered over him, his hand feeling small and clammy in mine as I exaggeratedly shook it. "My wife is all set for your date night. Enjoy yourselves," I said, a hint of mischief in my tone, leaving Matthew momentarily speechless and seeking reassurance from Sandra. Mary and I shared a laugh as we departed, fully aware of the storm brewing within Sandra. I felt no remorse. If anything, I hoped this would bring about a resolution. Coming home, the following morning, Mary dropped me off at my house around 6 a.m. As we said our goodbyes in the driveway, our farewell kiss lingered, a gesture I was certain Sandra observed from the window. Mary and I had enjoyed a delightful evening together, a lovely dinner, followed by dancing at one of her favorite clubs, a romantic stroll along the beach after the club closed, and breakfast before she drove me home. It had been an eventful night. Mary proved to be an engaging companion, an exceptional dancer, possessed a wonderful sense of humor, and was undeniably attractive. Our chemistry was palpable, and her kisses were electrifying. Although our interaction didn't progress beyond a kiss, I couldn't ignore the potential for an exhilarating relationship with Mary. Yet, Sandra remained the predominant thought occupying my mind throughout the entire night. Even as we danced, memories of my wife flooded my thoughts. Walking along the beach, reminiscent of Sandra and me in Hawaii, stirred bittersweet emotions within me. Every moment, save for the lingering goodnight kiss, was overshadowed by thoughts of Sandra. With a mixture of happiness and sorrow, I entered my house, pondering whether it would ever feel like home again. Sandra was waiting for me as I entered the house. Without preamble, she launched into accusations. "Nice kiss. What else did you do all night?" she spat. Ignoring her hostility, I greeted her calmly. "Good morning, Sandra. How was your date?" "Matthew seems like a nice guy. You slept with her," she erupted, her voice filled with anger. "Sandra, it was just our first date. You should know better than to jump to conclusions," I responded, attempting to diffuse the tension. "First date. Are you planning to see her again?" she demanded. "I'm not sure. Are you planning to see your boyfriend again?" I countered. "Of course not. I don't want him. I want you," she confessed tearfully. "Well, you seemed to want him last week. What changed?" I inquired, a hint of frustration creeping into my voice. It became apparent that Sandra had come to understand the gravity of her actions, and perhaps she genuinely viewed her outing with Matthew as nothing more than spending time with a friend, akin to hanging out with one of her girlfriends. After all, Matthew didn't pose a threat, and in retrospect, I may have overreacted. However, the idea that any woman would expect her husband to be comfortable with her going out with another man, even innocently, still baffled me. I pulled Sandra close into my embrace. "Sandra, I love you dearly, but I cannot tolerate the idea of being with a woman who desires other men under any circumstances. I refuse to accept infidelity, and if it ever happens again, if you lie to me or betray my trust, I will not hesitate to end our marriage. Do you understand?" I held her gaze firmly as I spoke. Sandra reciprocated the embrace, showering me with kisses. "Yes, darling, I would never cheat on you. I have never desired anyone else but you." This situation was different. Sandra held me close, her tears soaking my shirt. "It wasn't a date. What you had with that woman was a date. We had dinner, but Matthew was so rattled after encountering you and injuring his hand. He insisted on taking me home immediately afterward. It wasn't enjoyable, and I had a dreadful time. He dropped me off before 8 p.m., and I've been here, replaying scenarios in my mind, while agonizing over what you might have been doing with her all night. And then seeing you kiss her like that," she trailed off, succumbing to tears once again. I held Sandra close, reassuring her that everything would be okay. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly at the thought of Matthew meeting his muscle-bound competition. My firm handshake with him had left me confident that he would be a perfect gentleman that evening, which was one reason I insisted on meeting him before Mary and I departed. "Sandra, let's set aside last night's events for now, but I'm serious about seeking counseling. There are things I still need to understand, and you need to comprehend my feelings too. If we can work through this and rebuild trust, then I won't see Mary or any of the other women who persistently ask me out," I said earnestly. Sandra's eyes widened as she realized Mary wasn't the sole concern. I returned to sleeping in her bed, signaling a step towards normalcy and clarity. Counseling proved invaluable to our situation. Mrs. Stewart provided a compassionate and supportive environment. She patiently explained to Sandra how her actions had made me feel insignificant and hurt. Sandra attempted to clarify that she hadn't viewed Matthew as a romantic interest, but merely as a friend. She argued that she had never labeled their outing as a date, but simply as a night out with her friend Matthew, akin to spending time with one of her girlfriends. It was only through Mrs. Stewart's guidance that Sandra came to understand the importance of boundaries in a monogamous relationship, that spending time with other men at the expense of your husband was unacceptable. Sandra attempted to argue that my decision to date another woman was vindictive, especially considering the woman in question was evidently more attractive and beautiful. She insisted it was unfair and unjust. Mrs. Stewart intervened, providing insights from my perspective and offering viewpoints that helped soothe Sandra's agitation. When it was my turn to address the situation, I acknowledged that I now comprehended Sandra's intentions, but reiterated my stance on her spending time with other men. Turning to Sandra, I spoke firmly. "Sandra, I love you, but you shattered my heart when you mentioned going out with Matthew. My military training instincts kicked in, and I felt compelled to fight back. If you were considering seeing other men, then I felt compelled to respond by dating other women. It's a decision I never wanted to make, and I regret that it happened, but the responsibility lies with you. If a similar situation arises in the future, you'll find divorce papers on the table within a week. I refuse to tolerate infidelity. I understand that you may not have perceived it as a date, which is why I'm willing to work on our marriage, but let this serve as a warning. Never attempt something like that again." After the intense exchange, a palpable shift occurred in our dynamic. Sandra became more attuned to my emotions, and our communication deepened. We transformed this absurd ordeal into a catalyst for strengthening our marriage. Our therapy sessions continued for several months, during which we discovered new methods to prioritize each other in our relationship. Mary displayed remarkable understanding and took the initiative to reach out to Sandra, assuring her that she would refrain from pursuing her husband. She made it clear that while she would step back, she remained open to stepping in if Sandra ever chose to end things with me. Recognizing the gravity of her actions and the potential loss of our relationship, Sandra underwent a profound realization. She understood the importance of our bond and the consequences of her choices. Never again did she provide cause for jealousy or entertain the thought of being with another man. She grasped the significance of a committed relationship and accepted responsibility for her decisions. While Sandra and Matthew maintained their friendship, Matthew hesitated to make any advances or pursue a romantic connection, wary of crossing boundaries. Reflecting on the events, I came to a realization. Sometimes, women can't understand normal thinking. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.